is Mark and Charity Mornings.
Okay, so this is our podcast.
That really threw me off. I thought, oh no, are we on the air
We
again?
have to have something so people know
that this is
it's
different.
the podcast.
Okay.
We'll have a podcast intro.
Do we know what we're going to call it yet?
We don't even have a name for it. But here's the idea. I don't know what time you're listening to this. Actually, we don't know if you are listening to this.
We're aiming for 10-ish.
Yeah, 10-ish.
That's where we're going to aim to put this.
So it sort of has the notion that it's your first coffee break. You know, it's 10:30. You got a little bit more time to spend with us. And so we're going to put together the podcast. Either, stuff we had on the show this morning, we can spend a little bit more time with. Mm-hmm. Or the things that were going on that, we didn't have time for on the air. Not that it wasn't important, but it could be larger things or other things going on.
Because I've heard people say that you and I have a good rapport on the air because we talk back and forth. But what you may not realize, and I've had people ask me this too, what do you do when you're not on the air? Like when the song's playing.
Right. And
we don't have our mics on and we talk. We do still talk to each other. We don't sit here. Most days we don't sit and look out the window or at a screen. But you and I continue the conversation. And quite often I've thought about that. If only the listener could hear how the conversation continued.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. No, not all the time. But sometimes, like for instance, we were talking about the tennis this morning.
Yeah.
And you rhymed off several names. And I don't follow tennis and I don't pretend to. And I'm not going to say that I'm a sports fan like you by any means. But it was so funny to me because it was the men's side and you were talking about the final. And all I wanted to say to
Novak
was,
Djokovic lost to Daniel Medvedev.
Yes. And you said that. I'm like, okay, you can't make names up.
That's
because to me, that sounds like a made up name. And it got the conversation going further. And I thought that would be so great to share with people and an interesting topic. Because to me as a broadcaster, even just out on the street, there's no way I could say those names.
In the 90s, my favorite tennis match would be when Goran Ivanisevic was playing Yevgeny Kafelnikov.
See, right there. Like that is just blah, 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 blah.
Because now I'm just showing off that I can do Russian names. Yevgeny Kafelnikov and Goran Ivanisevic. But the other thing that was interesting, and hats off to Leila for Fernandez for
Canadian,
what she did.
Yes.
I mean, that was tremendous.
Player.
And I can't tell you, and maybe I can't tell you, the impact it has on young tennis players who might never have picked up a racket. Young players who might never have picked up golf clubs if it wasn't for Brooke Henderson. Like, we don't live in a major summer sport country because we have winter. So as a result, we gravitate to hockey, skiing. We do well in those. We don't always necessarily do great in the summer sports because we don't have 12 months of it here. And so if you don't go to the States for college, you can't become a great tennis player. We have some. We don't have the number based on capacity, but per capita rather. But yeah, so when you get somebody like that, it really does inspire young people, and good for her.
And it's so interesting that you're saying this because we had friends over Saturday night after the match, and we were talking about how incredible it was. Mm-hmm. But the observation was made, they're like, who from this area would ever do that? We have a tennis court in Campbellford.
Right.
But I can't tell you if I've ever seen anybody play there. And it wasn't something growing up that I thought, hey, I want to go down and play tennis.
Right.
Because again, the point was made, like hockey, soccer, baseball, but never tennis. Mm-hmm. Tennis was never that sport that anybody really seemed to, I shouldn't say anybody. It wasn't as popular as the other sports. So it's interesting for you to say that. We have it here. We have the option to play it, but it's not the first sport I think most people gravitate to. So when something like this happens, it's like, wow, that's incredible. And the strength and the athleticism it takes to play tennis is amazing.
It wouldn't be surprised to drive by a tennis court tonight and see younger people playing.
I hope so.
And hit it into the net, miss it. It doesn't matter. You have to start somewhere, but at least to see whether Felix for the young guys and Lily for the young female athlete, whether they go out and play. It would be kind of cool. So anyway, it was a fun weekend from that.
It was.
What else going on over the weekend? What else? Oh, we talked about 9/11.
Oh,
you know
what?
The documentaries. Here's how you know it's a good documentary. No, that's not fair. Here's where you know that the subject of the documentary is huge when it literally takes you back to the moment it really happened.
And it truly does.
Virtually every 9/11 documentary I started to watch or flip through or saw took me back to that day. And isn't that amazing 20 years later? First of all, where'd the 20 years go?
Well,
Like,
and
seriously.
20 years later,
Yeah.
we were watching a documentary yesterday, and it was 2 hours long. And I watched it from start to finish. And even though I knew what was happening and what was going to happen, I could not stop watching it. I could not get up and walk away. I could not, even my son was trying to tell me something, and this is where the horrible parent comes out. I was like, honey, I'm sorry. I'm watching this. I can't. Yep. Okay. Just go. Just go and do. I need to.
Yeah.
It is. And 20, as you said, 20 years later, still gut-wrenching. And of course they show the footage, and we've seen it all 100 times, of the planes actually hitting the towers. And even still yesterday, I found myself gasping and being like, oh my God, that feeling.
Did you learn anything new that you didn't know? That you didn't know?
I wouldn't say learn. Certainly things were pointed out that I never really thought about before.
Yeah.
Different
right.
aspects of it. The documentary we were watching particularly was called I Was There. And as I mentioned this morning, it was actual home videos or personal footage from people who just happened to have a camera that day, whether they were a tourist or heading to work, a busker, just out and about filming the day. And it was a beautiful day. And so one of the cameras was following actually one of the fire chiefs. I couldn't tell you what station it was, and I don't know why they were with them, but they were just happened to be on the road with them, like a ride along. And it started with them checking a gas leak 5 or 6 blocks from the World Trade Center. And you can hear the plane in the footage. And then they all look up and the camera pans up and you see the plane go into the tower. But then you follow what happens after that with the chief. And this particular chief was the one running, not the headquarters, but their home station in the lobby. So he was running everything in the lobby and sending everybody up.
Oh my
so
gosh.
You're hearing the radio. He's talking to other stations and other firefighters on his radio, and you hear them going back and forth, but then you hear the noises around them and you see what's going on around them. And I'd never seen that aspect of it before.
We'd never heard the pandemonium from inside the building.
Yeah, I had never heard it. So it was captivating, and it was so interesting. And again, heartbreaking, because you knew what was coming. You knew what was going to happen.
Right.
And he's sending people up in these towers.
Yeah.
And it was to have, as you said, to still have that 20 years later. And my son was watching it with me, and he's not there yet. It didn't sound like they'd really started covering it yet. So I get it. But there is that part of me I was trying to explain it to him, and I was showing him, and I was like, no, you need to watch. Like, this is one of those moments, buddy. Like, this was an incredible moment in history. You need to. And he's doing his thing. And he's like, oh, that's awful, Mom. And then he'd go do his thing.
Part of it's because he's young, and part of it's because he didn't live through it.
He didn't live through it.
Right.
And there was that part of me that was like, that felt a happiness that he hadn't. It's like, okay, it's not.
Define innocence,
he's not,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not feeling everything I'm feeling right now. So for that, I'm grateful. Not to say there isn't going to be something he's going to go through. Right. Certainly. That'd be very naive to think that.
Where was that show? Was it a streamer?
Oh, what was it on?
Because I watched Turning Point.
Discovery, I think.
This one was on Netflix. It's called Turning Point. It's very political. I don't mean political like, I mean, it followed the aspects of what the president did.
Okay.
The decision to go to war, what was happening at the Pentagon. So what was happening within the seat of government as it was going on. A little bit of firefighters, like clearly you couldn't get away with that, nor should you.
No.
But the whole idea of it was, let's connect the dots. What happened before that led up to it and after? And so it was the events that were big events that you didn't realize and nobody realized.
How would you realize?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Till you got to 9/11, that's, oh my gosh, all of these other things were either trials that we stopped or other events we didn't realize that were leading up to it. And it's amazing, which is why how we got there and how we continue to be with Afghanistan today. And it's not simply because I know, President Biden and everybody associated with withdrawing is getting heavy, everybody, was critical of that one event, but they said this has been going on 40 years. There was no easy way to get out, and it's not over because we're out.
Yeah.
We have to stop believing in this very small world we have now. And it's doing, I haven't seen the end of it, but it's doing a good job of saying that was one day of a very horrible thing that's going on. And to say that that's an isolated incident that had nothing to do, we're going to show you a larger picture. And it's big in scope and it's very political.
So it does show you what happened after 9/11 then.
I'm getting up to that part.
Okay, because I would be curious to know, going back and seeing all these little dots leading up to, which hindsight is always 20/20.
Sure.
But because of those dots, do they look specifically for more dots like that? Or has it led to other, like we did, of course, that changed everything. And that was what I was trying to explain to Nathan yesterday, was how the world changed after 9/11. But did it change because of 9/11, or did it change because of what they saw when they looked back? I'd be interested to know that.
Yeah, and it was not only international, but it was also domestic. Like, for example, the Patriot Act. And they talked about how now the government was spying on their own citizens. But again, it was all because of safety. And people said, well, we wanted freedom. But I mean, and here we go. So if you're 20 years old and you think Facebook's invasive, guess how that started? It started after 9/11 when the government said it was okay to keep your data. And so now these companies are allowed to do the same thing because the government does it, So, like, again, all of this is related.
And this is what Mark and I talk about when we're not on the air.
And then we do birthdays. Or then we play Beat the Bank. So Beat the Bank is back, which is our favorite thing to do with Sandra Hussey of Exit Realty. Thank you so much. It'll be on for about 10 weeks.
And I'm so glad it is. You know,
it's
truly,
fun. It's fun.
I do enjoy I know it has its hiccups, and you never want anybody to lose.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, it's fun.
7:40 on Mondays. You phone in if you're caller number 9, and then we open up a series of vaults. Each has more money. And if you've listened to us, first of all, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you know Beat the Bank works. Nobody's going to stumble on this podcast and say, I don't listen to these clowns. What's this thing about? But people always ask us all the time, how do you get in? What do you do? Somebody texted me this morning and said, I would have stopped at the 5th vault and $460. Fine, I'll leave you a check at the front desk. Hindsight, right?
Exactly.
Could go to $10,000. So that's always a lot of fun. So
and that's
we
the
enjoy
struggle.
that. Yeah.
Do I keep going, or do I take the $460?
Because I love it when someone wins a couple of grand. I love that a lot.
I remember before I started working here, and it was one of those things, because you've been playing Beat the Bank way longer than I have for quite a few years. But I would play in my car on the way to work. I would.
Really?
And the
You'd
kids
stop
too.
Here?
We wouldn't stop, but the kids always wanted to keep going. I got butterflies then. I'm like, oh, they're going to do, oh no, it's going to go. And then and you're right. Once you get into those thousands, like once you get past 1,000,
right,
it is nerve wracking. I don't know how I don't know how you have the stomach to keep going.
Yeah.
I never did.
Everybody always says $10,000, but we all have an $800 hiccup somewhere.
Exactly.
Where it's either car repair or something that...
You know what? That would cover that bill this month. I should just take that.
$600 would be such a... If I found $600, by this whole problem would go away. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's why some people stop at $700 and say thanks, because now that's done. The furnace is fixed or whatever it is, because it's not totally life-changing at $10,000, but boy, does it ever solve some problems.
Well, it's funny you say that. Cooler weather's going to be here right around the corner, so you might need the furnace to be tuned up.
Okay, so now you have to get back to work, and we're going to miss you already. Join us tomorrow. Smile Cookie Week with Tim Hortons. Wendy Warner's going to be on the show later this week. Terry Fox Run is Sunday.
Vicky Samaras joining us.
She's going to be on the show this week, too.
You know what? We should spend tomorrow talking about her, because she is amazing.
Yeah, so now you've decided. Okay, so we just decided that tomorrow Vicky Samaras is going to be on the show tomorrow. Why don't we do that?
Well, no, I meant the podcast. You and I can talk about it, but we can put her on tomorrow.
She's great.
Her story is just
like
awesome.
We wonder why people give back in the community and how it starts. And Vicky Samaras is a great example of somebody who said, there's a need, I'm going to go ask. Like nobody anointed
I'm going to do
them.
that.
Yeah. Oh, well, you must have qualified and been great. No, they stood up and said, nobody's doing something. Can I do it? That's how stuff gets done.
I want to do it.
So, good for her. That. What do you got going on today? I'm going to go vote. Today's the last day of pre-voting. I can go vote today.
Yes, because we meant to do it yesterday and, of course, got sidetracked. So, yes, that's on there. I might cut the grass. I'm thinking maybe.
That's pretty good.
Because
'Cause
we've had
it's
the rain
Monday.
and it doesn't look so bad right now. I figure I should probably get it done. But other than that, I think I'll just enjoy the day.
Get your birthdays in. I'm going to go home and look up celebrity birthdays. That's how I cheat every day. I do it the day before.
Quite honestly, no,
No,
you don't.
I do
No,
not.
you don't.
No,
you
I
say
don't.
that, and then
I
people
don't.
think you do. No,
No.
Jimmy Hollywood is actually in Hollywood, and Mark does not cheat when it comes to birthdays. Those are two myths that everybody, or assumptions,
Yeah.
everybody just makes. No,
No.
Mark does not cheat.
We were at Friends on the weekend, and they were talking about King of Queens and how funny it is. And they both said, I can't remember the guy's name. I said, Kevin James.
Exactly.
And they said, oh, do you like the show? I said, I never watched it. They said, how do you know his name? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, have you never listened to his show?
When's his
I
birthday,
know.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't need to know his birthday. If you were to say that, the lead actor in King of Queens, Kevin James.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch it. I know that stuff.
I'm glad you
so.
said I know you're trying to wrap things up, but I'm glad your friends do that because I know you get this too, and it's hilarious. I have one friend. Well, we have a few friends who love music, but one in particular who loves to quiz me when we get together.
Right.
He will play the clip of a song,
Right.
or give me a title, or
What a hack.
and be like, okay, what is it? Go. And I'm pretty good up
Yeah.
until maybe the
Oh, you'd
last
be
5 or
great.
6 years.
Oh, you'd be
and
great.
Then I stumble a bit.
They
but-
don't let me play on cruise ships anymore because I win all
Mark's
the time.
not allowed.
I'm not allowed.
What
They
was
see
it?
me
You couldn't
coming.
get TLC. And
Couldn't get TLC's Unpretty. I got 39 out of 40. I missed out on that one. All right, we got to go. We made people
Okay.
late for work.
Yeah, we
Thanks,
better go.
everybody, for the podcast. Join us tomorrow morning with Mark and Charity Mornings, 6 until 9 here on 95.5. And